Hello everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of building a live collaborative whiteboard in Django. So yesterday we made it so that you can have a board that you can draw on, and the data is persisted in the backend. So if you refresh it, it's still gonna be there. Today we'll try to make it more collaborative. By broadcasting the changes through the server to other clients. But first, let's just adjust the size a little bit because the default size is too small. Just double that. Double both sides. Now that looks better. Okay, so the next thing, just continuing from where we had yesterday, we persisted the changes from the client to the database. And the next thing we need to do is to broadcast that message to other clients. To do that, so channels have a thing called group, which we're not using right now. And groups allows you to clients to join or leave them, right? And in this case, what we want to do is when the user connects to this board with this board ID, we join all the clients connected to this board ID to a single group. So later, if one of the clients made some changes, we can know how to find the other clients and broadcast the changes to all the other clients. Believe it's here. Yeah. Groups. Outside of consumers. Yeah, I think what we need is this group add function, basically. So let's try that. Channel layer dot group add, and we need a name, and the name is gonna be based on the ID of the board. Let's make a class method here. Actually, no. Can just be a property, I guess. Just freeze here, maybe. Otherwise, we'll return board. I think there's some rules on what kind of characters you can use. Let's just use that. Okay, so group add self.group name, and then self.channel name. I think this is automatically assigned to the client, to the connection when the connection is established. So let's see if it works. Okay, non-type object. All right. I think we also need to use the different layer because the default backend doesn't have group support. Right. So we'll need to use this channel Redis package. We'll just install that. I also need to get Redis. I don't have that. No. Okay, so that's done. We'll just follow documentation here. Okay. Guess we can just use all the default settings. And I do need to, I believe, start Redis server. Okay. Okay, cool. Now if I refresh this, group name must be valid Unicode string containing only ASCII hyphens. Let's use hyphen here. Okay, so that seems to be working. The next thing we need to do is to implement this broadcasting function. Broadcast. Groups. I think it's called group send. Group send, yes. Okay, so it takes a group name and then the payload event. Okay, let's do that. Receive JSON here. Do await self dot channel layer dot group send. So this type here should match a method on the consumer, which we don't have now, but let's add it first. Broadcast changes, maybe. It takes self and event. Okay, and this will be type. Let's call it chat. No, not chat. Broadcast changes. And instead of doing text, I just do. What should I do here? I think I just forward the whole message for now. I just do content. That will be the all the like the whole payload here. Now let's try to print that out to see what it is. Okay, if I draw something here, I get this event here. It has all the content, which is good. Now I need to forward this to all the other clients. I'm wondering if there's a way to know that if this message is coming from myself. There gotta be something related to that, I guess. Send. Well, actually, it doesn't care about if it's sending to yourself. But I mean, the easiest thing we can do is just we assign an ID to the client, right? Just generate a usual ID here. X to make that a string, and so here you can send session ID, and that could just be self.session ID. And here we can do if event.get session ID equals self.session ID, then we just return, right? And print something out here. Ignore self message. Let's see if that makes a difference. Okay, here I draw something. It'll say ignore self message, which is good. Next, we just need to send the actual message. Yeah. Say await self dot send JSON. The content in this case can just be event, and event looks like, well, I just create another window, I guess. New tab. Okay, side by side, right? So this will be our client 2, and let's see if it receives the message. So refresh that here. Okay, so if I draw something here, nope, it's not getting the message. Let's see what went wrong here. Well, let's see if the backend goes to here. Bot message on. Refresh that. If I draw something here, oh, I guess this disconnected before. Probably that's why. Yeah, that's something else we need to take care of. Now, great. So here we got the whole event here. Received the whole message here. We just need to use this data on the front end. I think we can just send the event.content here, right? Because the other stuff seems to be very internal. Right, so now I have add object, an object, yeah, things like that. So on the front end, index.ts, we have, let's add a new type first. Oh no, not actually here. Here, right? Received WebSocket message. Now we have a new type called add object. And the data will contain, the data will just be board objects. right? So in this message listener, we'll just add a else if, or we can do a switch, but it's fine for now. We can do this the objects dot push, and that's gonna be payload dot data, right? Because payload dot data is of the right type. Yes, dot draw. Let's see if this works. If I draw something here, nope, it's not. It's not being propagated here. Let's try to. Actually, is the front end being built? It is. So that's good. Let's see. Let's do console log here. Payload. Right. Just to be sure. So it's here. And I have this here. Data the object. Oh, right. The format is not correct. Is it? Data object. This format is kind of messy right now, but we'll deal with that later. And this is going to be data the object. Fresh. Oh, now it works. Okay, great. So that's the first step on making this collaborative. Let's figure out the disconnecting issue first. So there's a library called Reconnecting WebSocket. I think we can just use that. It basically tries to reconnect whenever your WebSocket gets disconnected. I'm not sure if this queues your message though. Does it have a queue? It does. Messages to buffer until reconnection. So this does have a queue. I'm not sure this is something we want or not, but it's something to be aware of. Just add that. Okay. Now to use that, we can just replace. I guess it's we can just replace WebSocket with reconnecting WebSocket. Oh, it's our first dependency. Interesting. It's gonna be connecting WebSocket, and just replace that with connecting WebSocket. Okay, guess that's it. Cool. So to test this, we can just stop our backend server, restart it, and yeah, they're being reconnected. So if I draw something here, it's being broadcasted. So that's great. The next step, I think, is to I think at this point, what might make sense to do is to not use WebSocket to send the message. right? Because if we so the benefit of using WebSocket is like it's more real time, and there's less overhead because you're not going through the authentication and things like that over and over again. Even if you use HTTP2 where the underlying TCP connection is being reused, authentication is still being done on every request. But the good thing about HTTP request is that it's stateless, right? So if you send something, if you don't have a response, then you don't have a response. You basically you know the state of the request. You know if it's being returned or not. Whereas in WebSocket, you need to assign some kind of ID to your request to mimic a request, and then examine each message that you receive to see if this is a response to a request that you sent before. And that's just more complexity, right? So although I'm not sure if I should do it now or like do it later. Let's just do it now because you know we haven't been doing a lot of Django stuff. So yeah, let's do it now. Okay, so how should we start on that? Should I be doing that in Whiskey, like the traditional Django application as a traditional Django view, or should I be using ASCII? I'm not sure if channels support that though. Let's see. Hmm. Guess maybe not. Okay, so I guess we'll just do a traditional Django view. Now the question is, should we do well, actually, I think Django supports it now, right? Django async views. Async views, yeah. It's new in Django 3.1. I've never done this before, honestly. But let's try this. Is there an example? Let's try it then. In the view here, just do async diff. So let's try a simple example here. I can't spell. I guess it's still a request. Async views. Okay. Okay. Then I guess I can just return the same stuff, right? HTTP response works. Let's try something here. Await from async IO. Import sleep. 1 second. Now, I'm not sure if this is gonna be good enough, but let's try. Hello. From whiteboard views port. Hello. Okay. Okay, it's not crashing. Oh, that works. That's interesting. Well, that's good to know. So the reason that this actually matters is that our channels stuff is already in this this main event loop, right? And how channels runs through a regular Django application is to wrap them inside of a thread, a thread, what's it called? A thread executor. It's basically a thread pool, and in order to send messages to channels from within those executors, you then need to use this thing called async to sync, which is another layer of wrapper around everything you're doing. So that I believe that'll add a lot of overhead to everything that we're doing. So yeah, if we don't need to do that, then we can get some more performance out of our application. Okay, so let's do a real thing here. Div create add object request. I'm not sure if the request is the same or not. Okay, here's some example. It's always good. Use at Facebook. What's that? Okay, so I guess that's still the regular HTTP request. That's interesting though. Like, how do you, if it's a file, then how do you then convert that into an async reader or something like that? Okay. So let's do this. We expect, so here we expect JSON post payload, and I think it's body is request body. Sure, Django HTTP request. A body, yes, it's a byte string. Yeah, I'm just not sure about this file-like interface. How does that work in async functions? Okay, so I guess I can just do payload equals to json.load loads. So loads takes a string or bytes, so that's good. And what this is gonna look like, well, we'll need a board ID first. It should be payload dot get dot board ID, just to follow the front end spelling convention to do camel case here. In the actual object. So what did we have in the models? We expect the object data to be of type in all the actual fields. So object data would just be payload object data. What's it called? It doesn't really matter. So we'll try to get the board here. Board object. So board will be board objects.get pk equals board ID, and the object will be board object dot from JSON board ID. Oh, it doesn't need to call board here. And then object data. So that's great. Do I need to check the method here? I guess we can make some kind of decorator here, right? Just to make things easier in the future. Let's create a utils folder. Folders. No. Let's do expect JSON post, right? And that will take a view function, and the wrapper function will be request args, and essentially it should just return view function and passing all the arguments, and we'll return wrapper. Also, I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, but we can also do, it's called Django CSRF exempt. Something like that should work. But before returning the view function, we need to intercept whatever the request. So we expect things to be JSON parsable. JSON. We need to say if request method. Do we actually need to? Yeah, I think it's fine just like that. So payload equals to JSON dot loads request dot body, and then payload should be try catch expect accept JSON dot decode error. What's it called? JSON decoder. Okay. If that happens, we should return a HTTP response. Not allowed. No, not. This should be forbidden. Or just bad request. Yeah. Okay. Something like that. Otherwise, request a payload. Should be payload. Okay, so now back to here. Utils decoders import expect JSON. Although I'm not sure if this async function will work. Let's try it. I think maybe Python, Django knows a way to await on the coroutine. The other thing is we need to wrap this inside a what's it called? Database sync to async. Okay. And I need to await on this. Don't need the return value. Then I can just return JSON response. Okay, true. Whatever. Okay, let's try this. Add object. Okay, let's give it a try. So instead of using socket here, what we need to do is to use fetch and the input, I guess it's method post URL. Yeah, so URL is gonna be slash add object, right? It's missing the following properties from request. Okay, I'm really not sure what I'm doing. Let's look it up. Let's try example. This one. Okay, so it just takes a URL. Okay, good to know. Add object. Can I specify? Oh, this message is here. Yes. But then response. Return response dot okay, I believe, and then no, sorry. Response JSON. Yeah. No, the response doesn't matter. What we need is to send data. Okay, I guess it's the type of that. So body is it could be a lot of things, which is good, I guess. JSON the string if I should give you something. No. Okay, so that should work. I'll also include this headers here. Stringify, and that's gonna be, what should that look like? Should have a board ID and object data. Board ID will be this dot board ID. Object data will be, that should have a, so object data should look like, right, I guess that's just that, right? Should use this dot current join object. Yeah, remove that. Let's give it a try. Right, in headers. Should I also be checking the headers here? I'll do it later. I don't think this is gonna work on the first try. Let's do it here. Okay. Okay, great. It's not sending. Oh, no, I have a filter on. So it's 500. Value error. Oh. Well, I guess it has to be aware of that, right? Is there a way to make it work? So this is the response. If is coroutine. Is coroutine? No. So coroutine is the function, right? Let's see an example. Is there an example? Right, I think coroutine is the response. If it's coroutine, then return await response. Otherwise, oh no, because this is not a async function. Interesting. I'm not sure. I think there are better ways to do it, but right now it's just hard coded to always do that. Right. Okay. Okay, so that returns OK true, which is good. But then here we also need to broadcast the changes. And because we're doing asynchronous stuff, we don't need to wait for the broadcasting to finish to be able to continue on. We can create a task without ever waiting for it. Although that's gonna cause some edge cases when you try to shut down your server, because those tasks that are not waited on, they might be still hanging on the background. So let's do it in line here. We can do, how do I access channel layer here? I think there's, yeah, outside of consumers. Yeah, we can do that. Put it inside. Channel layer dot group send. We'll just copy whatever I had in the consumer. Although I think it might make sense to actually add a class method to generate the group name. Otherwise, we need to code the same thing in a lot of different places. Not self. Can be a static method actually. Static method ID. Let's return that. Not group ID, board ID. In here, just do return self dot get name, self dot board ID. Right. Cool. So now let's just copy this part. Group send. Nope. Consumer. This would be board. Consumer dot get group name board ID. The content will be, we'll just try to match the format here. I think that looks like this. Add object dot object, which is different than what we have here. So we need to transform it. So the content will be type add object, right? Although here we don't have session ID, but we don't need it here. I mean, we could still assign a session ID to the scope, but we can do it later. Type object data object will be object data. I think. Okay. Okay, let's try that. Okay, it's not being broadcasted apparently. Oh, okay, here it session ID. Right, we can just remove that for now. Consumer. Yeah. Just remove that for now. to this. Okay, great. Now the client is sending a message by the regular HTTP request, but that message is then broadcasted to other clients through WebSocket. And to me, that is good because in regular HTTP, you also don't need to worry about disconnections and some other weird stuff. So it should be more robust this way. Okay. Okay, I think that's good for today. Tomorrow we'll try to add more, I guess more functionalities to this project. Maybe add colors and different shapes, and eventually I want to show, or I want to study how to handle the case where, for example, if two users operating on the same object, right? Let's say if there's a circle and one user is changing the position of the circle, the other user is then changing the color of the circle. How do we resolve that situation there, right? Or if two users are trying to change the same property, let's say two users, they are both trying to change the color of the object, then how do we on the back end do we it's easier to know, right, which one wins. We can just determine a rule, but then how do we then communicate that to clients? So in those situations, the clients will always be seeing the same board. So they don't diverge. That's the goal. Okay, I guess that's it for today. I have a board we can draw, and yeah, other people can see your drawings, and if they want, they can also draw on the board. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow.